Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Ayo, congrats. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all the leading women out there that have been highlighted by the This Day team. And Dr. Abati, I'm with you. We do need a conference, and men need to step up. So well said. We begin in Asia with Korea and the standoff between the trainee doctors and the government. There's been a standoff now that has been stretched into 4 weeks. About 90% of the 13,500 trainee doctors that are very important for assisting in surgeries and medical care, they have refused to return to work because of President Yoon's plans to increase enrollment in enrollment spots in medical schools. So I think there's about 3,800 or so spots. He wants to increase it by another 2,000. So they are now issued suspension notices to the trainee doctors now. I think the deadline is March the 25th. If they do not respond to that notice, they will be suspended. So basically, the public is behind the government. They feel that there need to be more enrollment spots so that the amount of time it takes to receive medical care in Korea is reduced. So we'll see how things move there. We go to the United States and jobs data. We previewed this on Friday morning. The U.S. continues to create jobs, 275,000 in February, although January's number was revised downwards by 167,000 or so. The unemployment rate did tick up to 3.9%, but I think that's because of the participation rate increasing as well. So there's whole, numerator denominator thing with more people in the labor force in the U.S. So more for President Biden to keep championing on. And speaking of Biden, his campaign revealed that the campaign raised $10 million within 24 hours of that State of the Union address that we all discussed here on Friday morning. He's hit the road now. He's campaigning. He was in Georgia. In fact, him and Trump were in Georgia on the same day with dueling campaigns. Still in the U.S., TikTok this week, Congress is going to be voting on whether or not they're saying it's not a ban. What they're saying is they want to make ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, to sell the company and sell it to somebody else because they feel that TikTok is being used to spy on Americans. This is one of the few things that Democrats and Republicans wholeheartely agree on. I think it's going to be, they've showed a lot of support for it. There will be a vote. After that, it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate will probably, vote on it, and then it goes to Biden's desk. The White House has said that they will sign it if that gets to Biden's desk. Now, on Trump's side, very interesting. Trump initially supported this ban on TikTok, but now he has reversed himself, and he says he's questioning the ban. What a lot of folks are saying is that he has met with an unnamed billionaire investor, a billionaire donor to his campaign, and that particular donor is heavily invested in ByteDance and TikTok, and so they're saying that money is the reason why Trump has now turned around and no longer supports a ban on TikTok. So we'll see how things develop on that front. You kind of mentioned Oppenheimer. I've been talking about Oppenheimer since last year, what it means for science and technology, what it means for education, all the nuggets of wisdom in that movie. Christopher Nolan winning, I think, his first Oscar, Cillian Murphy getting Best Actor, and my favorite, Robert Downey Jr. getting Best Supporting Actor. This movie made almost $1 billion at the U.S. box office. It was one of the most profitable movies in 2023, and it got about 7 Academy Awards. So well done to Christopher Nolan and the rest of it. And Hollywood is banking on all these Oscar-winning films juicing streaming and so on and so forth. So there's a revenue end to winning an Oscar. I think, come to Nigeria now. There was an article in This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record, about experts suggesting that the government should control input prices for farming. Basically, what your fertilizers, your grains and so on and so forth for animal feed. Can the government do that? We have, of course, have debated the ability of government to be able to control prices to where they can bring food inflation down. A lot of folks are still saying that customs has to adjust the exchange rate to at least freeze it for imported food in order to bring prices down. We'll see how things work there. Finally, our trade numbers for Q4 2023, that came in late Friday. Nigeria recording a 1.4 trillion naira deficit, about 10 trillion in exports, 12 trillion in imports, about 10 points, so a couple decimal places there, so 1.4 trillion. We imported, get this, 50 billion naira worth of palm oil from Malaysia. This is on an annual basis, despite the fact that we've got Edo State and other palm producing nations. So our trade numbers, it's the same story every time we talk about Nigerian trade. 80% of exports are crude. But funny enough, the imports, the highest amount was machinery and transport equipment. So there's a lot to be said for our manufacturing base, exchange rate impact, and so on and so forth. That is our update for today.
I mean, and that you just put a finger on is the problem of Nigeria. We don't export high quality earning goods. It's just raw material we churn out. I mean, look at AGOA. Most of the export we do through AGOA, which is tariff-free, is still crude, where we're supposed to have refined products and things like that. And look at it, over the years, we have learned how not to add value to products as a country. I mean, when you say we import 50 billion from Malaysia on palm oil, I just laughed. Because, I mean, the story has been told ad nauseum, but some people have even discounted as that story, that it's not true, that they didn't get the Piscifera seeds or the Tenera seeds from here. But whatever the story is the fact that we had immense viability in the agricultural sector, but over the years, we have not been able to scale where we add value to those products, and that's the problem we have. And that's why you see that definitely what we export and we import will far away each other. So how can we add more value? It goes back to what you're always talking about. We need power. We need power. We need to be able to produce within and make it cost effective. And that's why it segues to the other story we were talking about, that, you know, the input of agricultural products, if government can reduce the price, I don't think they can. Because let me tell you, one of the most important inputs in agricultural produce today is your diesel, your petrol, your fuels that you use to power the irrigation engines and everything. Are you going to keep the price of diesel constant after you've deregulated it? So that's why that analogy, I'm sure, is going to be a terrible one. But I'll go with what has been said before as regards, removing tariff from these imports, removing the tariff from these imports to be able to hold the cost of these imported grains and things like that, and expand on production capacity. Because if we can truly expand on production capacity, we can do it. I'll give you an instance. In the 70s, I think we did about over 400,000 tons of cocoa. That's still the benchmark. We've not done beyond that in over 50 years. So we're not even producing enough. And that's why the conversation comes up about improved variety. We've not been able to do a lot. The African Development Bank with Dr. Adesina was talking about helping us with wheat, just like I was saying the other day, that they're a heat-resistant strain of wheat, which has nothing to do with cancer. So if we can farm that and do a whole lot more. So there's so much work to be done. There's another story that was making the rounds that was talking about the fact that because of the bad planting season, most of our watermelon farmers in Bauchi are now moving over to Cameroon. That's another thing we should look at.
All right, very quickly, I'd just like to touch on the ByteDance U.S. Conversation. Like you mentioned, next week, the Congress will be voting as to whether to ban TikTok, which has its parent company as ByteDance. But looking at the business side of things, Rotus, while I understand the argument about U.S. national security, we also realize that ByteDance is a big threat to Meta, which is a U.S. company. Only last year, end of last year in November, ByteDance had recorded or posted a $29 billion profit, just $3 billion short of what Meta posted at the same time. Obviously, both coming from ad revenue. So there's that business conversation as well. The congressman you're referring to is Jeff Yass. He's a mega donor of the Republican Party. And like you mentioned, yes, he had visited Donald Trump in his Mar-a-Lago home. But also some Trump loyalists are also arguing for and saying that if Congress should sanction ByteDance, it should go across. Google should be sanctioned. Meta should be sanctioned. action, because the same thing they're accusing them of is exactly what they do. They also gather information. I guess the big difference here is this big thing around threat to national security, which is going to be a big concern. It might just be the end of the road for ByteDance, TikTok in America.
Okay, the big issue about TikTok and ByteDance is within the circumference of the conflict with China. You recall that in the State of the Union address, President Biden referred to it when he said, yeah, he will compete with China. He's not looking for conflict. But what we have seen consistently is that whether with semiconductors or with social media and other applications, there's this, conflict, this suspicion, against China, whether in the UK or even in the United States. So this is where the TikTok thing is all about. Now it's in the House of Reps. Before now, many of the states in America, even Congress, had passed a bill, had discussed a bill, saying, look, do not use TikTok for government operations. So is the case also in the United Kingdom. So that's where it's about the conflict with China, this competition over security, national security, and all of that. But the latest issue about TikTok and ByteDance raises two other issues. The first is the right to the freedom of expression and information, the First Amendment. Those who are opposing it are raising questions about the First Amendment. And then second, they are raising questions about the right of 170 million Americans who are running small businesses, who depend on the social media, for businesses, on Instagram, on TikTok, and all of that. These are the big issues, as you have a decision. But for now, the decision that was taken that you are reporting is 50-0, unanimous. But there will most likely be litigation around it subsequently about freedom of expression and the right of small and micro businesses in America. You talked about Biden raising more funds, $10 million. He, in fact, also took part in a $30 million advertising, where he was saying, look, this thing is not about age. It's about who can do the job. I may be old, but I can get the job done. Okay? So the thing, of course, is that if you look at the polls, after that Biden speech, a poll conducted by ABC News and Ipsos now shows that the gap has narrowed a little bit. So Trump was far ahead previously. Trump is looking for money to settle legal issues and all of that. And then after Biden's speech, you have the gap narrowing a little bit. But for how long can that last? That is the question with regard to the race as we look forward towards the November competition. I thought you were going to talk about Japan. Japan, we have been told, after a review of the GDP results and all of that, they say it's now out of technical recession. What we had before now, a month ago, more or less, was that Japan had entered recession by 0.41% within the September to December 2023 window. But now we have been told that after a review that, the economy, the GDP actually grew by about, 0.41%, year on year by about 0.1%. But the question is, inflation is still high in Japan. Consumer spending has contracted, and these are issues that they have to deal with. And in China, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ni Hong, held a press conference over the weekend, and he says, well, the real estate developers, the real estate sector can collapse if it wishes, if they cannot meet their obligations. Evergrande declared bankruptcy. The other company, Country Garden, was sued for bankruptcy. And so it looks like, in terms of trying to survive, grow the economy in 2024, the Chinese government, they're saying, well, if the real estate can sink, let it sink. So those are some of the issues that are of interest to me. Okay? And as for International Men's Day, let's plan towards it for November 19, so that they can also know that we men too, we are serious-minded, and we can set an example for young men who spend all their time watching Premier League and playing games and allowing the girls to shine and outshine them even at the law school. Thank you very much, Rotus.
Well, thank you so much, Rotus. And I believe wholeheartedly that this year's International Men's Day would be one with a difference.